black people have this may ruffle some feathers, but I don't give a fuck. I feel like black people have revolutionized poverty and made it look so fucking cool that people think we like it.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie.
I think that black people have made
That's a
poverty
fucking
look
bar.
so cool that people think we fucking like it, bro.
Niggas,
we don't like it. We're
also,
just making the
also
best
too,
of it.
Even the trauma that come from it, niggas aspire to it.
Like
niggas want to be a tough nigga. You don't realize this nigga ain't tough. This nigga just watched his daddy die and his mama on drugs and like his life. That nigga traumatized. That nigga got PTSD. He ain't tough,
but he got a
he's traumatized, and to the point where a nigga could grow up in a home like this and aspire to be from the projects.
It's because, unfortunately, people think that blackness is tied to poverty. They think that the black experience is being poor. That's why when you have others who equate poverty to being black, I don't have any privilege, I grew up poor. Why the fuck do you think because you've been broke that you know what it feels like to be black? No, you don't. You've just been poor.
Well, I think that those people that say they're just liars. It's just like cut.
I think that, like I said, we've made poverty look so easy and so cool that they think that it's
we
synonymous.
just are cool. You're not gonna take the cool. You're not gonna take the rhythm.
Is for the cool.
Yeah, you're not gonna take the rhythm out of black people's steps. You're not gonna keep black people quiet. I think
we're always gonna be too loud when we were never meant to be heard.
Also, too, you're never gonna stop us from being creative. So we're gonna find ways to express. And just as much as you're gonna have somebody that is gonna be critical of America, you're gonna have somebody that celebrate their neighborhood.
Correct.
And both things exist. And I think that you get into glorification when you got record labels pretty much creating a blueprint for what our music should be.
Right.
And they putting it in a spreadsheet. This does well and this does well.
And they got a checklist.
And they got a checklist and these words have to be mentioned and this is the subject matter.
And you're gonna tell me blackness.
And you're gonna tell me black.
Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. As you can see the clip, we here breaking down this ideas and concepts around this supposed authentic blackness. You know, I know we've hit on it before, but we're gonna deep dive into it. You know, authentic blackness. What does it mean to be black, or what is cool about blackness? Because you know what I'm saying. Everybody wants to be black until it's time to be black. But why do everybody want to be black? And you know, they echo some of the things that other groups of people are attracted to. And so when I first saw this clip, it caught my attention right away. Of course, you know, it was how they was talking about it. It was just, you know, like you sitting around people at the corner store talking, and then somebody speaks something that got some sense. But it was the way it was delivered, and not just the message, but the way it was delivered that really caught my attention. But I figured I want to bring this to this platform and we talk about it because they was hitting on some real points about how black people are viewed by outsiders, how we view ourselves, what we glorify, what we look down on, what we think is cool, what we don't think is cool. Because, you know, they was like, black people are cool, but what defines our coolness, right? But we're going to get into all of that because it's interesting for us to analyze ourselves, but also analyze the lens from which others view us. And, you know, stereotypes exist, but we've also played deep into these stereotypes. And that has helped to get us where we are because, you know, one of the things they mentioned was about the influence of the record labels. And remember, at one point, this music was ours. And then real early in the game, it wasn't ours anymore. And then, you know, you got all these, gangster rap hit the scene and all the hood movies and everything that came out in the late 80s and early 90s. And we're talking about shaping people's mindsets, social engineering. So let's get into it, man, because I've been on it all day. It's been a long day. I've been up since 6 this morning. I just got home, but hey, let's do this. Pat, you got that intense look on your face, man. What do you think about the clip? What do you think about some of the concepts? Oh, what do you think about what they were saying, basically?
I like what they were saying, and I thank you for finally finding the clip where we ain't got to go off on the messenger and the message.
Every now and then I do that.
Yeah, you know, this is great for my mental health. Um, I appreciate you, good brother. No,
Yes, sir.
I like what they were saying. I agree with the bulk of what they're saying. I disagree with some of the ways that it's presented, especially in terms of we make things look cool.
I
I
wrote that
think
down.
cool is relative, is subjective, is our perspective. Of course, we think we make things look cool. We're doing it. Um, so but the key point that they were making is that uh for me was the takeaway that poverty and blackness have been intertwined,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I've been having conversations with a lot of people about as they talk about how how they feel like they've missed out on the black experience. And then you ask them what the black experience is, and they describe poverty. Now, they don't say broke and blah, 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 but they describe things that people that don't have resources do, not because they're black, but because they don't have resources. So when you start talking about the family camaraderie and the chicken and the cookouts and the way the meals are prepared and all of these other things, yes, there's some black expression in that, but you can get all of that without all of the other stuff. Some of that stuff, though, is an expression of poverty especially in terms of, and this is one thing I think that's interesting, the closeness of black families.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is a black thing. I think that's an impoverished thing. Um, and the reason I say that is because when you take resources away from any family, no matter the culture, the natural instinct is for them to group together. They become closer because now they need each other more to survive. When you give that family or members of that family resources, one of the very first things that they do is they start to spread out. They start to meet up a lot less often.
True.
You know what I'm saying? They start to get together a lot less frequently, and they start to interact a lot less frequently. And so what you see in there, like the whole family, the black family cookout, the way we do the cookout, sure, that's an expression of black culture, but the need for the cookout in and of itself, that thing that ties black family to get families together, that's not a black thing. That's an impoverished thing, in my opinion. And again, I'm not saying that's cut and dry. I understand it's a whole little line there in the gray area there. But by and large, that every week cookout at Big Mama's house, yeah, that every Sunday dinner at Big Mama's house, that tends to happen a lot less frequently on every Sunday when everybody got money. So you have to start asking yourselves questions about, well, how much of the black, and it becomes a difficult thing to tease out because it's so closely entwined. And there are people that could speak directly to this, specifically people that have gone from being impoverished to having resources, but those tend to not be the people that we want to listen to, because when they speak about the transition out of poverty, we begin to look at them as if they're speaking about a transition away from blackness, which in and of itself is an expression of the linkage between poverty and blackness. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with them when they say, you're looking at somebody that don't want to be like that. That's just somebody dealing with trauma, and that's me disagreeing with the whole context of the trauma conversation, where you have people saying that they talk about trauma as if it's gum stuck to the bottom of your shoe, and if you just peel it off, then the shoe is restored to form. And that's not how trauma works. When you go through a traumatic experience, you change. The experience changes you. There is no going back. You're not that person anymore. And so when you're working with people with trauma and you're not trying to get them back to the way they were. You're trying to teach them how to cope with the new person that they are in the world that they're in. And so it gets to be kind of frustrating because I heard somebody else talking about black trauma, and they were saying that it's difficult to understand black people because unless you understand black trauma, you don't understand who black people really are, because you mistake our trauma for who we are. And it's like, yet again, we're having this conversation like trauma is some trench coat that you put on and you just walk around in it. And if we could just get black people to take the trench coat off, everybody could see who we really are. And it's like, no, that's not how trauma works. You can't take the coat off. The coat is your skin now. That's you. That's what you do now. So that part gets to be frustrating, but I don't like that piece. But I love that we're having the conversation about what it means to be black. And we're trying to tease that out from all of the attributes that have been affiliated with it. And I can appreciate us wanting to be, this goes back into another conversation we had. I can appreciate us wanting to be overly positive about it, but I wonder, like, even in that conversation, how much are they really seeing black people in the black experience and really accepting it? And how much is it they're seeing it, but then they put it on rose tinted glasses, and they just trying to make it seem better than it really is, and they're trying to, like, they're sugarcoating stuff, and they don't want to accept the negative aspects of what we have become here in America. And so I have questions about the conversation on that end that we can't really answer from that clip. So again, to sum it up and then land, I love the fact that we're having conversations about what the black experience is and trying to find the unique lane that the black experience exists in, and a kind of cultural line that flows through all different types of socioeconomic backgrounds and statuses. But if we're going to have this conversation, I think we have to be real about the conversation and not attribute bad attributes to exterior forces so that we don't have to take blame and ownership for our negative expressions.
Right. But so you gave a bridge to what I was going to PC with, because I want to ask PC from a different angle. Yes, I do want your overall thoughts on the clip, but us romanticizing, because they talked about trauma being cool, like being traumatized is cool. So basically, it's like a romanticizing the trauma that black people have experienced. Not only because Pat took the angle of wearing the trauma, but she hit on the angle of the romanticized. I can't say that goddamn word right now. Black people romanticizing trauma, making it cool.
And about, yeah, Pat covered like about 18 different angles and really put it all together nicely. I'll say that. So
thank you.
Hey, anytime, brother, you know. But yeah, I think that's the aspect that I have trouble with, is the romanticizing of the culture from a standpoint of, because when you say poverty, that's another word for saying ghetto. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, when you hear other people from other cultures, when they want to mimic black culture, or when they want to say or ascribe to saying they're dealing with something there's typically a negative connotation of black culture, they'll call it ghetto, to sort of like dance around the language. But I think that also we play a role in that, because we collectively have made our situations, like Pat said, look cool. And we've made it where even black people who make it out of certain situations always feel a need to indulge in that same culture that they escaped in terms of poverty. And not just indulge in it, but sort of like glamorize it. Mm-hmm. So we romanticize the notion from the perspective of letting everybody know that where we come from, it wasn't easy. You had to be made of something stern, something tough in order to make it out of our situations. But we do it so well that most of us can't see a life outside. So we take that with us. So you'll see Black wealthy, Black people who escape the poverty situation. You'll see their children indulging in the same mannerisms and behaviors that they just came from because they want to mimic it now. They want to show that they can keep it real. They want to show that they stand on business. You see it with the parents too. And I don't mean to go to the celebrity circuit, but that's where a lot of Black wealth is. And you see it with the issues and the trouble that the celebrities get into. And so when I hear the people talk about how we don't like the poverty, I think a lot of us are perfectly comfortable with the poverty. We just don't like not being able to pay our bills. So many people can figure out a way to pay their bills. They're perfectly fine. We talk about it all the time. We like the culture because the culture doesn't make us have to be accountable for upgrading our moral system. So our system of morality or our system of values doesn't have to change as long as we can ascribe to being ghetto, as long as we can ascribe to being impoverished, as long as we can coincide with that culture, because now I'm not expected to be able to read proficiently. And if I do decide to read proficiently, I'm no longer Black, I'm acting white. If I decide that I don't want to go to, or I don't want to indulge in certain activities in my neighborhood, I think I'm better than everybody else because I don't want to smoke and I don't want to drink. If I decide to go to college, I come back, the person that comes out of prison is more celebrated than the person who graduated from college.
Yes.
And it's because many people see that person that went to college as stepping out of their proverbial access or levels, as we like the word that everybody like to use is levels. But the person that comes out of prison, he kept it real. Nobody kept it real for going to college. But I mean, because the only time we celebrate those folk is when it's Black History Month.
Right.
And we do that with a side eye because we then juxtapose Malcolm and Martin. Well, I'd rather, be a disciple of Malcolm than Martin. Well, be honest with you, why are you choosing? You can say you may have some issues with how one or the other was perceived, but why do you have to choose? Because it's harder to keep it real. I'll have you know, many of you, Malcolm X was a hated figure when he was alive in the Black community. The Black folk on the block hated Malcolm. The only ones that had any love for Malcolm were the ones who followed him after he left the Nation of Islam. So to see how the perception is celebrated, we love it because it's a claim to victimhood. And I find that many in our community think that there's power in being a victim. And because there's power, because you get the attention of being a victim, we mistake attention for power and something that actually makes us feel something. And many of us, honestly, we understand that as long as we cling to ghetto narratives, as long as we cling to that lifestyle, we won't be a threat to our true enemy. So we hate on each other even more when we see ourselves, when you see people moving and navigating through those concrete playgrounds in those brick cities, and you see people navigating and finding a way out. Many of them can't even come back to their neighborhood. And it's not because they did something as, you know, it's not because they became a snitch. It's not because of anything else. It's because now they become a target. So overall, in terms of addressing the culture and so forth, a lot of us like
Boy.
I mean,
What the hell?
I mean, I have a brother, Dr. James Jones. You both know the brother, and he spoke of a woman who was a doctor herself, PhD, and she ghosted him. They met. She ghosted him. She saw him 6 months later, and said the reason she ghosted him is because she didn't think she could keep up with him. Because she likes to let her hair down when she comes home from work and sit on the porch and smoke a blunt, and she don't think he would smoke a blunt with her. Like, that's the mindset we still have. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to this whole concept, we still have to we feel like we have to clean to those things.
Right. That's
and,
right.
You know, with that, I land the plane.
So I want to, PC, you made me think about something, and I want to show a clip from Black Family Institute, Brother Rodney Smith. One of the videos we did was looking at one of his students talk about his basically was talking about his Black experience, but like you talked about, Black people who are educated, Black people who want to be the greatest version of themselves. That's not hood, that's not ghetto, that's not street, that's not considered the cool. You know, they're seeing this outcast. But this is the young boy speaking about his experience and feeling like an outcast. Wrong button.
And it's accepted, it's wanted. Like, people want them to be bold. But in school, think about it. School is not like that. Like, when you think about your Black male peers, what do you see? How do you see your Black males being treated?
Well, I see them like as I kind of estrange myself from them because
he said he estranges himself from his Black male peers. That's why I brought this up, because this is what a lot of people do not. Okay, so you are hype back there. This is something that people do not want to talk about. Since we are brought up in this capitalistic, materialistic, competitive environment, we forget what impact that has on the minds of our youth, especially our young Black male youth.
And it's not. I feel like it's my own problem. Like, I feel bad because I do that. And you know how like humorous I am in class. Mm-hmm. It's because I build up this wall. Like,
he said, "Do you see how humorous I am in class?" Because he's trying to use the humor to deal with his nervousness, to deal with his anxiety of feeling like he doesn't fit in with the rest of the Black males in class. Because earlier I talked about how this student has a large vocabulary, is very intelligent, and many times in class he'll use his intelligence to be humorous, so he doesn't seem so smart. It's sad to say, but a lot of kids do not want to seem smart around their peers because that intelligence is not accepted socially amongst Black people as something good, as something to be celebrated. But I'll just hit play real quick.
I'm scared to like you know, try to connect with them.
He said I'm scared to connect with them, but he knows the humor will connect with them. Humor connects with everybody.
Because I don't want to speak that way, but still, because you know how I was raised. Yes, but still, I mean, it's just ironic. But like, I still want to be, you know, with my peers, and
see, he still wants to be with his peers. He still wants to be amongst other Black men.
You get it. So this is an example of the negative effects of what's happening with this young man, right? the culture, like PC said, like black people want to be right. Black people like acting like unfortunately aspire to be. You know, I live in the college town, and so I see people who go for masters and PhDs who, like PC said earlier, they still got to keep it real. Like this element of keeping it real is the mindset of I have to have at least 1 foot in the streets. And if I have at least 1 foot in the streets, then I'm still really connected with my black people. I'm still really a black person because authentic blackness is associated with crime. Authentic blackness is associated with poverty. Authentic blackness is associated with hopelessness. Authentic blackness is associated with living in the ghetto, food stamps, a whole bunch of kids. Like we talked about earlier, the trauma. Like who romanticizes trauma but traumatized people? But insane people. Those are the only people who romanticize trauma. But no, that's the first thing I wrote down on my paper is black people want to be. And unfortunately, that's how we've been rolling. It's that ingrained mindset that social engineering, like I was saying earlier, being socially engineered over time. And some of us have been used to help socially engineer ourselves into this specific mindset, these ideologies, these concepts of authentic blackness, like the black experience, like you hit on earlier. What really is the black experience? Because I believe like maybe 20 years ago, if you'd asked people what the black experience was, you would have probably got a broad range of answers. I think even now today, you would get a couple different answers, but I think a lot of it was centered around the poverty, centered around what we see as the authentic blackness, like being from the hood. And you know, like all three of us have grew up in the hood, around the hood, worked in the hood and all that stuff. And that's not something that you aspire to be. Like I always talk about coworkers and other professionals that I know here in Tallahassee who have children, and they provide a certain lifestyle for their children due to their success. And the kids sometimes resent them for the success. And it's like, well, we're not real black people because we're not living in the hood. And it's just like, look at how we program even our youth to continue this idea, this mindset. Like I have to keep 1 foot in the hood. And if I don't keep that foot in the hood, then I ain't black.
Well,
we mimicking stereotypes right now.
Well, think about it. When some of us got our first cars, right? First thing we thought about was, you know, how can we get some rims on these cars, and how can we
put the speakers in the back?
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to work with this. Hold on, because I'm trying to control that, John. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So some of us is trying to figure out, like, I mean, not trying to figure out, but we wanted to mimic the drug dealers. Why? Because they were the most popular people in our neighborhoods. And when you graduate from college, what is the first? Well, not just saying college, but anywhere you become financially able enough. What's the first thing somebody do? They go out and get the nice and fancy car. Why? Because we grew up seeing that was the draw for the women in our community at that time. But it wasn't about being based on we wanted it for the status that it presented. And I'm not saying all of us, but enough of us saw it that way. You look at the NBA. What happened when, you know, Allen Iverson came to the NBA? All of a sudden, people started talking about street cred.
Yeah.
And they would talk about the difference between him and Kobe Bryant is Kobe Bryant didn't have street cred because people knew he grew up privileged lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So which image did most people mimic?
Well, it's ironic. People wanted to mimic AI's lifestyle, but Kobe was actually the harder worker, coming from the privileged background.
Well, I mean, Allen Iverson here, on Sea Line Avenue, there was a TGI Fridays. That was his hangout until it got too crazy. Then he had to go across the street to the Houlihan restaurant. But people got to see Allen Iverson living that same lifestyle, like the rapper, like the drug dealer. No disrespect to Allen Iverson. I'm a huge Allen Iverson fan. But I'm just saying that image is something that we looked up to. They were the man in our neighborhoods. And what makes you the man is that you respected on the street and the women flock to you. And so that was, you can look at those images. There's another image, right? If you think about New Jack City and the role that Christopher Williams played, he was the Wall Street banker who joined a drug organization.
Yeah.
He was living the life, but he joined the drug organization. And then at the end of the movie, he was the one that got pinned as the kingpin. But when you see like his lifestyle, he had everything he wanted. But there was a lure to that hood situation, that ghetto situation that brought him back. And because I live in North Philly, I have no desire to be in any of those places. But when I see everybody, nobody really tries to raise their game to match me. Is looking at me from the side eye. Let me see if he's still down with what we do. Let's just see if he's still down with us.
Is he keeping it real?
Is he keeping it real? You know, and so seeing it, firsthand experiencing it, and some people don't have the gumption or the understanding of what their masculine frame is like I do. So I won't fall for it, but how many other people do? I see a lot of brothers who going away for years, they come back and the first thing they do is go to the neighborhood stomping grounds.
What? I saw a video the other day that was explaining how a well-informed minority could fully manipulate and overrun an uninformed majority. Here we are. Here we are.
But you know, there's something for saying that the morale of a people has been broken, that people have become disenfranchised with the concept of breaking free of these chains.
Yeah.
So why shoot for high hopes and ambitions and risk my heart being broken, my ego being fragmented and destroyed to try to reach higher heights or whatever, when at the end of the day, I'm just from around the way, or I'm just a bee from around the way. And you see the demoralization of a people through that. And we don't even speak about why, because there's a lot of factors too. The chemical and the agents that have been put into our food and water retard the brain, the progression of your thinking, and it retards the what am I looking for? It's affecting me right now. It slows down or affects your ability to be cognitively developed. So when we're looking at our people who still drinking out of the same water, out the spigot, lead pipes run throughout my city everywhere. They're indulging in a lot of the different things that cause them to stay inebriated. Again, damaging brain function.
Mm-hmm.
because it's self-medicating. It's depressing.
Hey,
You know, so I might as well, you know, I might as well indulge
what?
in the things that make it easier and more comfortable for me to be where I'm at.
Well, we are indulging. A lot of us are indulging because we're intentionally handicapping ourselves, intentionally dumbing ourselves down to fit a stereotype that's not productive. I'm gonna say that again. The stereotype of the real one, whether you a real N or a real B, is not productive because we talked about it. Well, not us, but in the clip, they talked about they said, well, we are cool. We are. Yes. Like Pat said, yeah, we cool to us. But on a in the real world, on a real scale, is losing cool. Yeah, yes, people think aspects of our culture is fun. Aspects that that lead to that what you always talking about, Pat, the resilience, the music, the food, the fashion, right? All right. We make the music, we don't own the music. We make the fashion, we don't own it. We make the food, we don't own it. Like all the stuff that we're doing, that it's cool to say we're associated with it, but it'll be even cooler for us to actually reap the benefits of it and have rewards from it, be able to control what we create. But that's a part of that Negro mindset. That's literally what we're talking about, that Negro mindset. And they talked about we are cool and we won't be quiet. Because we're gonna tell you, like the Messy Mashawn podcast had that sound effect. You're not gonna tell me. You're not gonna tell me because I'm gonna tell you. Like telling somebody off is not a flex, but it's that part of that black culture, that black experience, right? Like the authentic blackness. If you're not authentically black, if you can't tell nobody off, and it's like, but we keep attributing authentic blackness to things that are not productive, and that don't make sense. Blackness isn't just about feeling good. Y'all do know that. I hope you do. If not, you just learned.
No, but it is about feeling good.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, you keep doing it.
Logic.
Dang. I know it's your greatest rival, and it's like for real, Joe. To being honest, it's really tearing you down something vicious. Like it's whooping feet.
I think it's the shirt, man. Made me think Logic.
Nah, I don't know, because when you be having other shirts on, you still be getting your feet whooped.
You know what?
Oh,
I be reading, dog. I gotta start reading.
You gotta stop. You gotta stop not being black. I think that's kind of where we like. That's what the whole show is about.
I'm so you're right. I gotta be more black. Yeah, you're right. I gotta be more black. You're right.
I think, and that's where, like, when we start talking about having this conversation in earnest, a genuine conversation, this is why I worry that we aren't going to have it, is because a genuine conversation about blackness doesn't make black people feel good. And that is like, who wants to talk about things that don't make them feel good? Like, nobody. So you got to be like a pretty mature person to engage in a hurt me conversation intentionally. And while there might be some black individuals, I do think there are tons of black, not tons, there are lots of black individuals that are mature enough to have this conversation. As a community, are we mature enough to intentionally have a hurt me conversation? Well, I would say the fact that we as a community are not able to watch slave movies, you know what I'm saying? And we're rebelling against narratives that don't make us feel good. I would say all of these things point to our inability to have a hurtful conversation. I mean, just look at the way we're handling each other in the gendered spaces, where black men don't want to have conversations about anything that makes their centered viewpoint feel invalid or hurtful.
Red pill.
And I worded it that way intentionally.
Red pill.
And then, you know, on the other end of that, black women also struggle with conversations that don't make them feel empowered or good about how they move in the community and in the space. So every time we have these conversations, we're combating the natural desire that we have to make ourselves feel good. So if I am in the middle of a conversation with somebody and I'm like, being broke, I don't care if you black, white, brown, purple, or blue, it don't feel good, it ain't good, and you ain't cool. All of the broke people, all of the broke, all even the non-black broke, all of the black people in the room, I say 90% of them are going to feel some type of way and immediately either insert a counter narrative or put up defenses. And the conversation breaks down at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We not talking no more. Now y'all are basically ready for battle. You just looking for an opening to shoot through. So how do we get to that space where we can have that conversation? I think we don't. I think we don't get to the space. I think we don't have the conversation. We try to encourage our children to look at the world through a realistic lens.
Yeah.
But then that becomes difficult because how do you do that when people badger you for telling a 4'11" boy that's 18 years old that he's not going to the NBA?
It doesn't help. It doesn't help to not be honest with the youth. It doesn't help to paint these unhealthy and unproductive narratives, because going back to the video with Rodney and the young man, it's like basically the young man is like, I want to be myself, but I want to be cool. I want to be liked. I want to feel good. And what's going to help me feel good is to be able to fit in with everybody else. But his version of blackness that he was taught, that he grew up with, isn't the same as his peers. And he wants to be around his peers, but his peers don't see him as authentically black. So he's looking for that good feeling. He's looking for the validation, the reassurance from his peers that, yes, you are one of us, because yes, everybody want to be accepted by the people around them. But and I'm glad Rodney had that conversation with that young man, because it's under the umbrella of be this type of black and you cool. And if you're this type of black, then we can't rock with you. It go on. Think about all these videos that we've seen. Like they do the street interviews and they walk up to the young black girls, or they on the podcast and ask the young black girls, what would you rather have, a drug dealer, a scammer, or a 9-to-5 dude? That lifestyle, ideas. All of them pick drug dealers and scammers. They can't have a 9-to-5 because he's boring. He's too structured. You got his stuff together. It's not that blackness that give me the ooh, that make the stuff jump. Mm-hmm. It's the boring blackness. It's the blackness that feels more white. Getting back to feelings now.
You know, the funny thing about that is the same black people who tell you that will be the same ones that say black people are on the monolith.
Right.
But you know, but the monolith, but I think those are convenient, ways to pigeonhole selective individualism in terms of how we move. And I think something else too, right? Because the group that I was talking about earlier, that was the demoralized portion of our community. there's another aspect of our community. I went to college with guys who decided in college that they wanted to be drug dealers, that they wanted to be street tough. Like they wasn't this when they was home. They wasn't this prior to getting there. You know what I'm saying? People like it was like I'm not going to explain the college experience that I had because it was wild, but the notion that that Pat brought up a point about us having these hard conversations. That's why the Black community is where it is, because everybody wants to feel good conversation, and everybody comes to the conversation feeling like I'm going to hold on to this particular notion or this identity, and from that, or they're going to hold on to something that is seen as something that can make them proud, something they can be proud of. And that's the one fragile area they don't want anybody to touch, because they don't want to speak to their contribution to what's happening in our community. So we don't want to speak to the fact that we have too many homes where you don't have a strong male influence. We don't want to get to the root of the cause of it, because instead of looking at it as a problem to be solved, we have a situation where nobody wants to be blamed.
Emphasize strong male, strong, competent male image, not just a male in the house, but somebody strong and competent. So emphasizing that.
Well, somebody that's like we use the term Jegna, right? And the Jegna is a man or woman. It could be anybody, being a woman, but we're going to talk about it from the perspective of a man. Somebody that's well respected, somebody that's seen as a leader, somebody that has honor and integrity, and somebody who's responsible, somebody who can be looked at as a role model. There are not enough of those figures in the house. And then in our community, we all know the buck stops. We're living a matriarchy, y'all. And the main people who want to correct this are the ones who control the matriarchy. So if you have a brother that says, "No, we're going to move this way," how many times have you seen that brother saying, "I'm going to move a certain way"? And the one said, "Listen." And when she says "listen" like this, it automatically means no matter what you just said, we're about to do what I just said or what I'm about to say. And that man bows down. And that's the culture in our community. So when you see the young man like the one that was in Rodney's video, right? And his father was standing right next to him. Was sitting right next to him, right? But at the same time, you got to ask yourself, if the father was a stronger figure for that young man, would that young man have the intestinal fortitude to stand on his own 2 feet? Now, I understand the power of peer pressure is way stronger than we give it credit for. But you talk about the culture, that young man is a part of the culture. He's just not what's been promoted and popularized. But there's a lot of young people like him who, to divert the attention from his genius, will become class clowns, will try to attempt to indulge in illicit activities.
Right. Fit in.
Yeah. You know, and they're the ones that typically get locked up.
Right.
You know, they're the ones that typically, because they're going to get sent on dummy missions.
Yep. Because they got
and the other kids know that, okay, you know what? Go in the store and steal something for us.
They start off with mules.
Yeah. What was the that movie The Wood, right?
Yep. Yeah. Stacey.
Smacking that girl on the behind, right? Go smack her behind. I want to fit in. Next thing you know, the neighborhood goon is coming to school looking for him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
also the neighborhood goon is who they looked up to.
Yeah. So, and gave him history credit for something else that happened later on in the movie. So we gotta stop talking about this situation like it's from a third person.
Mhm.
We all have a role to play in this. You know, I see the young brothers. I know who I can and can't approach. I would love to walk up to all of them to give them life advice. I know who I can get through to, and I know who I can't get through to.
Right.
I don't talk to the young ladies. Sorry, too many negative experiences with, you know, the lack of respect and the fact that you can get into a lot of trouble saying something to any of these young females. Period. So I try to leave that to the women, but where are they at? And this is when Pat was talking about, because I don't have a problem with the gender conversation. My thing is the black community is on its way down the toilet. Like we one flush away from being completely obliterated. So we got to address everything. I don't care about hurt feelings. I don't care about people who have an issue with my message. The point is, can you invalidate it? If you can't invalidate the message, don't get mad at the messenger. Mm-hmm. And it's one aspect of our community that needs to be thoroughly examined.
Yeah.
Unbiased. So I'm one of the few that don't have a problem with that conversation, but I get it for the brothers who would rather not deal with it. Well, actually I don't, but hey, the bottom line is our community is suffering.
Yeah.
People indulge in the suffering to the point where, like I said, kids are going to college to become gangsters and drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? Because they think that in that environment, they can sort of do what we do on social media. We can sort of recreate our image. And that's what they've always fantasized being.
We gravitate toward the aspects of black culture that white people have either created, curated, or manipulated, or added to, or taken away, like have been the aspects of black culture that white people have been able to have their hand in and engineer it this way or that way. Those are the aspects of black culture that we mostly gravitate to, if you really think about it. And it's like, I know we go in on Thomas Sowell all the time, and we do, and rightfully so. He deserves it. But one thing I do agree with that he's talking about, or I'm not gonna say I necessarily fully agree with it, but one piece of information that he's presented was like the roots of Black American culture, and how the roots of Black American culture do have aspects of white culture, because those are the people that we mimic. But not only did we mimic white people, but white people were able to manipulate the aspects of black culture that we were able to have more of a creative aspect in, and making like this is us. But white people have either came in to co-opt it, own it now, or remixed it, and all these different things. But aspects of what we see now as authentically black are destructive. They help uphold a system of white supremacy, and we want to be it so bad. We got to think about that. I don't think we ever thought about that, but we got to think about that, because we were talking about the Willie Lynch letter. If the Willie Lynch letter was about the reconstructing of the African mind, well, here it is. So, when you know better, you do better.
Well, I'm at the point right now where white folk don't really have to, the institutions don't really have to do too much to keep us here, because we're sort of in
it's on autopilot.
Yeah, we're on autopilot with this. And it's to the point now where people will fight harder to stay where they are. Dr. Claude Anderson said years ago, the first part of reparations that he think black people needed to receive was assistance with their mental health. Black people need therapy. And one of the reasons I think that that's true is because I can see the sickness as a counselor and a therapist. I've seen the sickness. I'll I won't say I can diagnose people, but I can ballpark it. I can ballpark a lot of the sickness that we observe in our community, and to the point where I was able to observe my own. To be able to look in the mirror and have a serious conversation, serious set of serious conversations with myself about things that I need to work on, things I need to improve on, things I have issues with. And I think many of us, and not only have I done that, I've actually sought help. I've actually sought counseling. So and it confirmed what I already thought I knew about myself in a lot of different ways and showed me some other things. I think our people need to indulge in some serious counseling, some serious reflection, and some and accountability across the board.
Yeah. Yes.
So we talk about the school districts are failing our children.
We failed them first.
We're the first place they learn.
We failed the kids first.
Who's responsible? Because my mother checked my homework every night. You know what I'm saying? When I was growing up, she checked my homework every night. My sister and I, she checked our homework every night. When I was in the 4th grade, my sister was in the 3rd grade. I was the 4th smartest person in the country. She was the first in regards to California achievement tests. Now I know that's those state assessment tests and what they use them for, but based on that, I had the 4th highest score in the country. She had the highest score in her grade, and so that was because my mother stayed on us in terms of our academics and education. Where's the accountability in the home? Where the parents, like I remember when COVID happened, parents were complaining because they said they didn't feel like teaching their children.
That's where the culture is passed down.
The ghetto aspect of it, I can't give that to the white man no more. Because how many times do we have to keep going through the same situations and not see that we need to fix this, or we need to create safety protocols and fail safes so that we don't keep ending up in these particular holes. This is where I get to the point where the sister said we don't like the poverty aspect of it, and I'm going to substitute that word for the ghetto aspect of it. I don't think we really have a problem with the ghetto aspect of it, because there's no expectations for those of us who are supposedly survivors of the ghetto.
We don't have a like it was said earlier. We don't have a problem with the ghetto aspect. We got a problem with the brokenness and the poor and being poor within the ghetto aspect. But if you could be what they call hood rich, you straight.
Well, here's another word, but yeah. N-word rich, ninja rich, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that's one of the and that's like I said, that was the chief part I disagree with from the clip. That's the rose-colored lens of us, that we put on in order to shield ourselves from the reality of the truth that we exist in. And that shield is what gets in the way of progress. Black people are, in my personal opinion, is that the true Black experience as it can be expressed in America today is on that borderline cusp where a slight nudge one way and it's ratchet, a slight nudge the other way and it's sophisticated. And it's on that line. And it's on that line because that's where we want it to be. We target that line. Like we want, as a community, to be, bad and bougie. We want to be hood and sophisticated. Like we want to be those social chameleons that can go in the hood and fire one off, but also can go in the corporate room. There's that failure to understand that if you're strong in one area, you're weak in another. We want to be strong in all of them. And that is another kind of statement to our immaturity as a culture. Just the inability to accept that we have limitations. You can't be 100% proficient in both worlds. You kind of gotta pick one. That is what the Black experience is, and I think it is why Black people have such a difficult time really identifying the Black experience, because to identify it with that lens means that you kind of gotta pick a side, and we don't want to pick a side, so we just try to toe the line, not realizing that towing that line means that you never get to be great at anything. You never get to excel at anything, and you never get to make your mark in terms of being able to say, this is Black, this is us, and this is who we are. Again, I keep going back to the Super Bowl performance because, in my opinion, it perfectly exemplifies the struggle within the community with identifying the Black experience. There's so many Black people that didn't like it, that liked it, that liked parts of it, that didn't understand other elements of it. And that is because there is no clearly defined Black experience in America. Everybody's coming at it from their own lens. And if your experience isn't similar to their experience, then you ain't Black. But the commonality of the experience is centered around the lowest common denominator, which I guess we can all agree, I guess, to that point, whoever's doing the worst in the community is having the most authentic Black experience. And so we should just run with that, right?
And that's horrible. That's horrible. That's horrible.
But that's what that's where the measuring stick is. That's the barometer for where we are in our description, and the one we choose to accept, and the one we choose to publicize. And I'm gonna go back to, because you know what, Joe, you did mention something, and I think is very pertinent. That's the one that gets access to the white liberal. That image, that helpless image, is the one that opens the window, or opens the door to access to the white liberals.
Tiffany Henry.
And a lot of people have figured out ways to scam that. Because I've know of a few Black folk, Black Lives Matter for one, other groups who have used the hardships of Black people to be pedestalized by white liberals, but yet give nothing back to Black people.
That's a whole bunch of Democrats being audited right now for that. So yeah.
So that part of not having a true clear identity, because we want to be lukewarm on everything.
Hey man,
fence treaders on everything.
Look.
And you know, a lot of that comes from the people who have been defeated. And Black people, the one thing we have pride in is not saying we've been defeated, but news flash, Black folk, especially FBA Black folk here in America, you have had your ass whipped.
Hey, you want to know what's interesting about us having our ass whooped and being defeated on the ground? Is we've learned to kick ourselves while we down.
Yeah, because you know, if it's safer that way. We're gonna survive kicking ourselves.
Yeah.
We're afraid of the ass whooping that got us here.
So we'll take
more of that smoke.
It's easier for us to take ourselves out than to actually fight something real. Yeah, man. Black culture.
I talked to freedom fighters from the 70s. And the one thing they said was the fight was beaten out of Black people in the 70s. The fight was beaten out. Like, and for those of us who weren't alive, like I was alive, but I was in diapers. But there was some very, very, like, we think that the things we've seen now are bad. You had police sanctioned hits, state police sanctioned hits, FBI, CIA, military intelligence sanctioned hits on like, you have squads that were going around looking for Black people to, what do they call it? MDK, 187, murder, death, kill.
With my gun in your mouth, fool.
Right.
Sorry.
So that, brothers and sisters who were political prisoners in jail. And I heard from the mouths, they were calling in hit squads to come into the jails.
Yep.
To come for them.
Yeah, we a totally different type of black people. Totally different.
Bruh. So that they said jobs. Yo, well, you know what? That sounds good. Let's take some of these white collar jobs that pay us less than the garbage man picking up the trash every week. Let's take those. We'll do that.
But
that's the middle class for us. We'll do that.
But in doing that, you got to keep it real. So go buy you a grill. Like when I started seeing everyday squares with grill, like go get grills in their mouth. Cause like when I was coming up, like to get a grill in your mouth, like you was from the streets. You did street stuff. You had a grill.
Robbed the jewelry store and told them make me a grill.
Hey, but when I just started seeing everyday squares with grills, I was like, okay.
You know where that came from? And we don't like to blame the media. That came from season 3 on The Wire, when Dookie was able to go on the corner and wear a white t-shirt and be a part of the crew. I swear to God, after that season, all I saw was young cats was that couldn't come off their porch on the corner with white t-shirts on. Man, we like to say the media don't play a role.
The early 2000s, because from my purview, growing up, it was a clear separation from black people who were in the streets and black people who were trying to be upstanding people. Now, it is all amalgamated together and everybody looked the same. So if you standing next to the pile of doo-doo, then what you look like? I'm just saying. Ain't nobody gonna clean it up for us, black folk. Ain't nobody gonna clean this mess up for us. So what the hell is we gonna do? Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones, FetLifeStation.com. Make sure you check it out. ThePax.org, check it out. On the Shoulders One.com, check it out. Make sure you like this video, comment, subscribe, share. We need to get this message out more. Make sure y'all support my homies, man. Hit up their cash apps. Support the homies, man. So we keep doing what we're doing in our communities, man. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all, and we catch y'all on the other side.
And thank you, Meek Kim.